Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Ability Podcast with Damo and Eddy. Thanks for listening.
How you doing?
Good man, how are you?
Good.
Good.
You had a good week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping out of trouble, looking forward to the long weekend, man. It's gonna
Yeah.
be good. It's gonna be good.
Easter
Easter.
comes around quickly, eh?
Friday and Monday off, bro.
Yay.
Well deserved.
Well, I suppose
Australian life.
Yes. Sunshine and drinking.
Yeah, something like that.
Well,
Food.
or whatever
All
you
that
do.
good stuff.
Food,
Yeah,
perhaps.
for sure.
Yeah. So I suppose we should, or you can introduce today's guest.
You know him a lot better than I do, bro.
Yeah, but that's why I'm not going to do it. You can do it.
How I'm gonna have a crack?
Go for it.
I've intentionally don't know a whole lot about you. Okay. I think I've done that on purpose because it's like I'm here today. Damien knows you really well, and I'm just keen to get to know you, man. Yep. Our guest Benjie.
Benjie, yep.
An NDIS participant.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. A psychosocial disability.
Yep.
Is that right, my man?
Yep.
Lives out north. Yep. Known Damien arguably for too long. Some might say. And you guys have been on a bit of a journey of friendship as well as sort of
Life.
understanding NDIS and
Life in general, yep.
And you're here to sort of share the journey with us, man. And I think for me, seeing all the news recently with the NDIS, some relevant, some clickbait, you could say, it's nice to hear your story and the reality of what it can do for people and the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, dude. So, did I do all right?
That was amazing.
Okay, just wanted to make
Yeah, no, high five to you. And so ultimately, I think you've been on the NDIS for what, 10 weeks, 12 weeks?
Yeah, about 4 months, I think.
I should know because I was there when
Yeah.
when it all happened. But anyway,
Yeah.
about that, yeah, just after or just before Christmas, I reckon it was.
I think we got started just after Christmas.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yep, and so do you want to explain to us, because obviously I know your story inside out and back to front, explain why you're currently on the NDIS, and then we'll work our way backwards.
Okay. So I've got a range of mental health issues. I've got bipolar disorder. I've got borderline personality disorder. I've got ADHD, PTSD, anxiety, and treatment-resistant depression.
Okay.
I also got some physical things as well that have come about from some of the poor decisions I've made that have stemmed from my mental health issues. And I'm trying to get them sorted as well now. So.
You can ask questions or have I?
Go for it.
What about, thank you for sharing, man, your diagnosis and all that. Do you think, for you, was there ever like a challenge of like even accepting the mental health and getting to the point of getting on the NDIS? I'm coming from the point of view of, I still think there's people out there that are resistant to the scheme or resistant to even getting on it.
Yeah.
Just because they're afraid, maybe from trauma or mental health or psychosis, they're afraid of acknowledging what's really going on. The stigma's still there, isn't
And
it?
Yeah,
maybe afraid of accepting you have a disability.
There's still a big stigma
sure.
attached to mental health, especially the more severe mental health cases, your schizophrenia, your bipolar. I think as a society we've gone to a stage where depression and anxiety are seen as okay.
Yeah, so many awareness days, right?
Yeah, but as soon as you start talking about your schizophrenia, your bipolar, your psychosis, your any of that kind of stuff, there is still a massive stigma against it.
Was getting a diagnosis a relief for you? Like, was that like a sense of like, some of this makes sense now, or did you already
it sort of at least confirms to you that you're not making it all up, because you get told that by so many different people, and you get told by so many different people, you don't know how to control this aspect of your life, you don't know how to do this, or
why don't you just get a job?
Yeah,
and it's probably one of the stereotypes.
And so when you do finally get some sort of diagnosis from a doctor or a psychiatrist, it's a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. The next part, obviously, is then becoming okay with that diagnosis. I've
I might need to shut that door.
We'll do a quick cut here.
I'll just sorry, Benjie.
Hold that thought.
No, I just want to shut the door for the noise sake.
Oh yeah,
We're good.
it shouldn't be too bad. I can cut a lot of that stuff down with the way the mics are set up at the moment.
Cool.
It's the one
Thanks,
in front
mate.
of the bin.
Sorry.
Alright.
That's alright.
Keep going, man.
Yeah, the next part is, I guess, accepting and becoming okay with your diagnosis.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with some sort of mental health problem since I was 10, so
Okay.
for me it was a bit easier to accept.
Yeah.
I knew from a young age that I was obviously different.
Yep. You had a sense in yourself.
Yeah,
or-
like I wasn't like every other kid. I couldn't level out my own emotions and that kind of thing. And but I mean, I went through a stage when I was, between like 15 and 20 where I refused to accept it as well. I would stop taking medication. I wouldn't listen to doctors. Because I didn't want it.
Was part of that whole 15 to 20 of like, I'm going to carve my own
Yeah,
way?
you're sort of like, well, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm perfectly fine.
Becoming
They're
a
just
young
telling me-
person, your own person.
Yeah, and but that set me up for failure later in life anyway. So
I'd say a lot of it, well, the majority of mental health or any disability is about self-acceptance.
yeah, absolutely. When you can accept that, and it often gets confused as making an excuse, but once you can accept that, your brain is different to other people's. Your brain doesn't make the connections other people's do. Your brain doesn't know the certain levels that other people's do. It's hard to accept, but you do get to a stage, especially when you've been into as many hospitals and stuff that I've been into, you get to a stage where you're sort of forced to accept it anyway.
Because you start experiencing the effects.
Yeah.
Either way, right? Like, I don't want to keep being in hospital, might be a
And
thought.
especially if your mental health's only getting worse as well.
Yeah.
And you're getting diagnosed with more things or different things, or certain treatments aren't working. You kind of have to open your brain up to, well, maybe I do need help with certain things in my life.
Don't we all, man? Don't we all? I mean, even for somebody...
Sorry. Keep that thought.
I'm just going to move that slightly lower.
You can hear me breathing.
I can hear you breathing.
I am your father.
It was a little bit Vaderish.
Awesome. Can you edit that out at least?
I can.
You're all good to go.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so like that whole accepting, getting help. I mean, even for me, I'm just a Gen Pop person who's had anxiety, depression, and life's challenges, like anyone, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has tough times in life, but even for me, looking at some of the most successful people in the world, they all have people around them that are ahead of them.
Yeah.
I find, or are in a place where they can learn from them. And I've currently been really observing these YouTubers, these bodybuilders, and you think they're so good they don't need a trainer, but all of them have people who have gone before them to guide them.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult to accept help. Like,
Yeah, it is.
we can all put our hand up to that, I think, sometimes.
Especially when, like, you get into that mindset of where you've got that kind of ego where it's like, well, no, I don't need help, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
I don't need, that person, I don't need a doctor, blah, 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 blah. And that's the worst part, is just getting stuck in that mindset.
Yeah.
You were saying, you weren't really aware of anything until about the age of 10. What happened at 10 or before or just after that for you to go, hey, shit, I'm not okay? Obviously, any of these questions you don't have to answer.
I went to the doctor because I was being bullied at school.
Yep.
Because of my weight.
Yep.
And so I went to the doctor because I'd started staying home from school and being really withdrawn and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up speaking to my doctor at the time, and she asked me a couple of questions about suicide, and I said, well, yeah, if it were up to me, I wouldn't
Yep.
be here. And that's sort of when that was sort of the glass break moment of like, okay, I think there's actually something a bit more than just, being upset that you're being bullied at school going on here.
And at the age of 10 to even have that enter your head is obviously not a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And did they just do the whole, okay, well, let's just give you this medication and you'll be fine, or?
Yeah, especially when I was younger, I had a lot of bad experiences. My actual doctor was amazing, but everyone I was sent to from her were some of the worst doctors
Just
I've ever.
over-medicate, under-medicate.
One of the psychiatrists put me straight onto Zoloft and put me on, I think it was 100 milligrams straight up
At the age of 10?
at 10.
Wow.
And then they couldn't understand why I was walking around like a zombie. Same psychiatrist turned around and said to my brother that he was the cause of all of it. I went and saw a couple of different psychologists. One tried to blame it on puberty. I was hitting puberty too early.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Been a lot of changes for you and your experiences since then.
I've still had a lot of bad experiences, unfortunately, and that's just solely because no one puts enough money towards mental health.
That's what you'd put it down to.
Yeah, like, there's all the psychiatric units are overcrowded. There's no nurses. Like, if there is, there's one on a shift. That's it. The rest are just, counsellors and that kind of thing, which I understand is fine and they help, but if you're in an acute psychological incident, you don't really need counselling, you need a doctor and a nurse. And then we'll just, like, all the psychiatric wards need massive overhauls with, in regards to facilities and the way they're run, and it's bad that the first half decent ward I went to was only about 4 years ago, and that was at Glenside.
Yeah, Glenside has been beautified, and they
Yeah.
intentionally have a lot of natural light and gardens, and it's been designed in a way, I think, where people can sort of I know I'm not at home, but I'm not in a hospital.
Yeah,
I'm not in ER anymore.
It's not, because you feel, as soon as you go into any of them, you feel confined.
Sure.
As soon as you walk in, it's all dark. All you've got is just the hospital light.
Do you remember the old Royal Adelaide?
Yeah.
The dark
It's-
blue.
Yeah.
The laminate was peeling off the walls almost. Like, they were ready to close up, and it was security guards got that look like, man, I've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And they want to get out of here, let alone the people who are there,
Yeah.
patients,
Yeah.
So that was looking more up One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest style.
It was.
Yep.
I was there visiting.
That's
a
what my
client.
mum used to say to me every
Yeah.
time she'd visit me at Benjie in Lomkima. She was like, it looks like I just walked into One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, it was. And that wasn't that long ago when I was at the ride, just before they closed. You
Yeah.
could tell they were like, we're packing up.
Yeah.
It was run down.
Beyond Plan Managers help make your NDIS journey simple. With Beyond Plan Managers, you can experience personal, quick support from a dedicated team. No big call centers, no hassles. Beyond Plan Managers will handle the admin so you can focus on what's important. If you're looking for a seamless NDIS experience, click the link in the description and choose Beyond Plan Managers.
But I mean, like, the money that people are putting towards it, like state government and federal government, it's being put to the wrong thing. Like, they built that new section of Lime with You a couple of years ago. They spent like $50 million or something.
Is that the mental health?
Yeah, and it only added 8 beds. Like, what the hell are you
Yeah,
spending
wow.
$54 million on if you're only putting 8 beds in? It doesn't make any sense.
I could fit a lot of beds in a house worth $54 million. That's for sure.
Like, it doesn't need to look special on the outside.
No,
just
just-
make it.
Make room for
Like a-
beds.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bill Shorten did touch on his recommendations, that one that was quite clear. And it's interesting because he didn't state a lot in the recommendations around specific diagnoses or groups of people in the NDIS, but he did outline that people with periodic mental health needs that area hasn't been addressed
Yeah.
well. What would be your recommendations for these people? You know, like maybe yourself at times with bipolar. What sort of support do you need? And I know the scheme's relatively new to you, which we'll touch on a bit. Anyway.
For me, the hardest part of all of it is having to justify yourself as to why you need a room at the psych ward, or
I like the self-advocacy.
Yeah,
It just gets a bit exhausting.
because like you present to an ED, Royal Adelaide, Longmorton, Modbury, any of them, you're shoved in a back room for anywhere between 8 and 16 hours.
Just waiting.
You finally get to see a mental health clinician, and their sole job is to talk you out of coming into hospital. They'll sit there and be like, oh, well, this holiday's coming up, you don't want to be locked up for that holiday, or, oh, you've got this to look forward to, and you'll hate it here, like, the food's really crap, and it's like, I'm telling you that if I leave here, I'm going to kill myself. And you're sitting there trying to convince me to leave.
And whether you feel like they say to you, oh, no, you don't want to come in here this weekend, it's Easter or Christmas or whatever, when you're on that verge of suicide, you don't give a crap about what day of the year it is. You just want to get help.
You're not thinking about the day.
Yeah,
the day,
exactly.
The holiday.
Yeah.
You're thinking, I just want to be safe. And that's the biggest problem we have at the moment is a lot of people with my kind of issues, we don't feel safe asking for help from the hospitals and stuff.
I think would you say that, because I know for some other people I've worked with, and I'd be interested in what you think, it's almost like creates like a negative response to being at hospital, which can then lead to just ongoing trauma of interacting with the services you need. Because you're in potentially a heightened state or a suicidal state.
Up until I started getting help from Be Cognitive, I avoided help.
Yeah.
Because
too hard.
What you're having to go through to get the help makes that issue that you're having 100 times worse.
Would you say that as soon as you stop engaging as well, they drop off?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is with mental health for some people, I would say, is that it is periodic.
Yeah.
It's not just that one moment. So
yeah, you are
being consistent could be hard.
Especially with things like bipolar and schizophrenia, where you'll go through stages where you'll have really bad trots and whatnot. When you get to that bad trot, you don't go looking for help. You'd rather stay at home and you isolate and you withdraw. And unfortunately, that's why a lot of people do commit suicide, because it's like, well, when your brain's already telling you a burden for the health services to then make you feel like a burden, just reassures everything that's going on in your head.
And, I know at the beginning you said, Benjie and I have been, really good mates pushing, 12, 13 years.
I've only heard your side of the story in saying that.
Yeah.
Benjie hasn't
No,
confirmed that yet.
I appreciate him as one of my best mates. But, we went through a time probably 4 or 5 years ago where we didn't speak for about a year and a half. And that was my doing, because I was going through certain issues as well, and his were, at the time, increasingly bad. And, I would message Benjie and I'd never get an answer. Or it would be 4 or 5 days later. And at the time, I didn't fully understand how his head was working, because I couldn't understand what my head was doing. So by the end of it, I'm like, if this is a one-way friendship, then I'm just not going to bother.
And then when there's time between contact,
It was me that approached him again a year and a half later. I'm like, dude, I actually miss you. I can't not be your friend.
Yeah.
But that was up to me to decide. He would have happily lived the rest of his life whether he did or not hear from me again.
Yep.
But I couldn't let that go. And I felt bad about how it ended the first time. But at the same time, I know for a fact I'm not the only one that's done that to him, but they've never come back.
Oh, okay.
I can see it in a much broader picture, I guess, but there are some that haven't come back. You know, so like Benjie's probably one of maybe 3 or 4 close friends that I have, and that's all I need. You know, and I know himself. You know, you've only got maybe 3 or 4 yourself, and that's 2. Yeah, well, including your partner, 3.
Oh, yeah.
So like,
That's it.
there's probably 3 of us that are on your side, and I've probably only got 4 or 5 on my side, and for me, that's all I need. It's not about having 25 best friends, because the more you have, the more awkward it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we've had our issues too, where I didn't understand him and he didn't understand me, and it was better just to be unspoken for a period of time. You know, and then we got back, and here we are.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I guess you would have come across that a lot in your life, where people didn't understand you, so they just pulled away.
Unfortunately, with borderline personality disorder, you have a roller coaster with all your friendships and relationships. Because when you have borderline, you either see people one of 2 ways. There's no grey area. They're on a pedestal because they're like the perfect person, they're amazing, they're my best friend, blah blah blah, or they're down here and they have nothing that I want to talk to them about. I don't like anything they think about anything, and it can change very quickly. And so unfortunately, yeah, I have lost a lot of friendships because of those sorts of things.
You know, for me, it probably wasn't until I started working in the NDIS sector that I started to understand how he was thinking a lot more. And that was when I came back to him like that, because I had more of a broader...
Few experiences. Where
Yeah,
you go,
absolutely.
You know what? Like that. Oh, that reminds me of something Benjie said.
Or,
Something like that.
and then I'll be like, okay, well, he's really not that strange and not that weird, because there are so many people out there just like him. So, yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, man.
Go for it.
What are your hopes for the NDIS right now, and how has it sort of helped you? I know you said be cognitive have been a big help already. How's that really played out in your circumstances?
It's helped massively just with organising everything. Because I've had Lauren working with me.
Is Lauren your support coordinator?
She's my
Psychosocial.
recovery coach.
Cool.
So
Nice
she
about that, yeah.
organises everything for me. She organises my support workers. If I need to, she'll help me get to my psychiatrist, my doctor, and all that kind of stuff.
And even with me nagging him to come here today, she reminded him to come as well.
Double nag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even just that has been an incredible help for me.
I think people don't always realise that for someone even like myself, Sundays, a lot of days, I get up, I do things, everything's reasonably okay. Shit happens, right? But, you know, for a physical disability, maybe like yourself, there are some obvious things sometimes you need support with. Someone like you, there's still things you need support with. It's just because it's a psychological...
And
I
it's,
like
it's
it.
invisible.
Does that make sense?
It's invisible.
Yeah.
With like the issues that I have, like especially coupled with the ADHD and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I liken it to the game on those game shows where you're trying to grab the money. It's like everything that I need to do is flying around
Okay.
all over that little box, and I'm sitting there trying to grab the
When
notes.
they've got the air in it?
Yeah, and I'm sitting there trying to grab the notes, trying to figure out what the hell I'm meant to be doing, and because your brain's in utter chaos.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Every day needs a little bit of a system, right?
Sometimes just having that person that goes, oh, don't forget, 1 o'clock today, you have to be here.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I've learned to do with him as well, because, you know, his memory may as well be that of an 85-year-old. You know, we could have a conversation half an hour ago, and just as he's leaving, I'll be like, all right, don't forget about tomorrow, and he'll be like, oh, what's happening tomorrow? You know, so I've been one of those messaging things like, dude, don't forget, blah, blah, blah. You know, so I've learned a lot about it as well.
Cool.
So it's been good.
So the NDIS has already helped you feel like you've got some more wraparound support?
Yeah, it feels like I've got at least a little bit more control.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big thing for me.
Does that help for you minimise the potential concerns of feeling like hospital, it's not just like I'm in the community, now in hospital. Does
Yeah,
it feel like there's more buffers for that now?
especially now with Lauren in place as well, is that I know she's not going to tell me that it's just something I'm making up or I'm overreacting or something
Yeah.
like that. So I do have someone that I can message in a professional way
Yeah.
that I can be like, look, this is what I'm thinking about, this is what's getting to me. And she can sort of, she can take that and go, well, okay, well, we need to do this, this and this, or I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go to hospital. You know, it's...
And it's different from him messaging me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a mate. I may as well be a family member.
For sure.
So he can message me and go, hey man, I'm having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. I'll be like, oh, okay, well, you know, what's the reason, why, blah, blah, blah. And I can give him all the knowledge and tools that I have, but I'm telling him as a friend, not as NDIS, you know.
Both can be helpful in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah. But I have also noticed that, like, when it is friends and family and they know your fears, they'll not in any way trying to be negative or deny that what's happening is happening, but they'll try and help you around your fears.
Steer away around it, yeah.
Oh,
So
man,
if they
almost
know
like a
I've...
protection.
Yeah, so like with my mum, like my mum knows literally everything, but if I go to her and say, you know, the thoughts have gotten bad and blah, 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 she'll help me, but she'll also guide me away from going to hospital. And it's like,
Because of the
she knows,
emotional
she knows
connection to
how
you.
scared I am of hospital and how much I hate that environment.
Whereas somebody external, like a
Whereas,
recovery coach,
someone like Lauren
can analyse it.
will turn around to me and say, no, get to hospital.
So Lauren will make you face it and
Yeah,
confront it.
It's one of those things where
It's impossible for a mum to separate the emotion of what's also can be great about mums.
absolutely, it's...
But even I do it though, like, I will try and
Sure.
steer him around the iceberg
Who wouldn't?
instead of hitting it head on.
Oh, you don't want to see a mate in a
No one wants to
situation
see one of their good mates just absolutely crash.
Mm.
But if that's what it takes to bring him back up again, then you know yourself, sometimes you just have to.
And especially like in the last couple of years when my fear of hospital has gotten a bit worse, it's now helping massively to
But-
have that so that I can contact someone.
Is that fear of hospitals though because you haven't been there in a while?
Not really. It's more so because I just don't like
Yeah,
being
it's
in those.
it's a step backwards, right?
It's not even that. Like it's not that. Like I have to face that my mental health has gone downhill or something. You know, it's not a nice place. It's not.
Yeah, like it's almost. I remember waiting in intensive care, like, or just out of emergency, and they put you in the other room where you're with like 10 people on beds, and it's like they're dealing with all the health urgencies here, but then they're making sure you're not comfortable. Because if you're comfortable, you want to stay. If you could put the kettle on, and you could put some slippers on and feel at home. It's almost like they want to.
BHeart is redefining disability supports with a focus on human rights. BHeart is committed to providing education and accreditation by using our lived experience to enhance the lives of people with disabilities through a human rights-based approach. Our team of dedicated practitioners aims to transform the sector by elevating human rights as a benchmark. So join BHeart in creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Click the link to learn more about our mission and how you can be a part of it.
In a psychiatric ward, you know, in 1G I think there's 26 rooms. So you've got 26 people walking around, each with their own mental health crisis.
I've got enough problems just living with one person.
Yeah, and it's like, you know,
Let alone 26. You know what I mean?
you're
Amen,
sitting there and you're panicking and you're in crisis and you've got all these thoughts coming through your head, and then someone's screaming and yelling over there because of what's happening in their head, and then someone over there. It's a horrible environment to be in.
It's not fun.
And
it's prolonged. It's not a moment.
it's-
Like,
it's-
the neighbours are arguing it.
it's never a
ongoing.
10-minute thing. It's you know, I was in there for 3.5 months. You know, so it's like, for 3.5 months I had to listen to people screaming and yelling and
coming and going, different people
And
as well.
that's only one time you've been in, correct? How many times have you gone in?
It'd be at least 20.
Yep.
I've got two pressing questions, but one of them is, on leaving discharge from hospital, why weren't you put onto the NDIS from there?
Couldn't tell you. I was given no help whatsoever when I left.
Okay. So no social worker said, you know what, we should plan a meeting to get all this paperwork to the NDIS?
No, there were social workers and counsellors in the hospital that were like, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
They ever mentioned the NDIS?
Yep. We'll talk to you about settling disability, we'll talk to you about NDIS, we'll talk to you about community mental health. And then the day of discharge,
Didn't happen.
nothing.
Wow. That's a big...
After I got out of hospital, I didn't see another psychiatrist until I saw my normal one, which was 2 months later.
So if you didn't have a supportive family, I don't know you heaps of, it sounds like you got some great people in your corner, including this guy. He's alright.
Maybe.
But if you walked out that door and just had some various essential stuff, you know, shelter in your life and some food maybe, like that's a massive red flag. Because if you're on the NDIS, then there's an activation for supports to start, like Be Cognitive are doing now.
I was told that I'd be referred to community mental health in Salisbury.
Yep.
I received one phone call and they said, are you still at home? I'm like, yep. They're like, all right, we'll call you tomorrow. No one ever called.
Yeah.
And that's every time I've come out of hospital.
Something has to shift. It feels like in the community. I was looking up the stats recently on statistics for suicide. 75-ish% men and 6 suicides a day.
I actually looked up, I got
Australia
curious
wide,
one day and looked up how much money we spend on mental health. And in, I think it was 2021, we spent, God knows how much money. But they did this thing in the budget that actually calculated it to every person. And the amount of money that we spend on each person in Australia for mental health for a year
Per everyone, like
is $434.
$434.
We spent that on our grocery shopping yesterday.
That wouldn't cover my medications.
Yeah, that's insane.
And it's like, when you're putting that much money towards people, what happens to people who need 6 months care out of the year? Do we make 434 stretch, or do we start borrowing it from other people?
So, I want to do a bit of a deeper dive here. Tell me if you're not okay when I ask the questions. From the time that I've known you, I think I can recall about 4 times that you've wished to not be here. Would that be about right?
No.
More?
I think about suicide every day.
Okay, well, I mean actually acted on it.
So, according to psychiatrists, there's active and passive suicidal ideation.
Okay, so
So passive is you think about it, you want to do it, but you don't technically have a plan for it yet.
okay. So how many times then have you actively sorted out the end?
It'd probably be near 50.
That many?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've written at least 10 to 15 suicide notes.
And some have been like maybe years apart, and then some have been weeks apart.
Sometimes I'll go, 3-4 years without actively trying.
Do you even know why sometimes they just spring up and you go... Because it doesn't necessarily mean your life is currently going bad, right?
No. So the last suicide attempt I had was 2 months after I got married.
Which I was at the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have been happy. I should have been on top of the world. But
Yeah. And then, obviously, there was a time where you were at the Lao Mac, and I didn't even know this existed before. Well, it didn't exist anymore, but you were having electric shock therapy done as well.
So that was after my last suicide attempt.
Yep.
That's when I got diagnosed with treatment-resistant depression.
Yep.
Which means that they pretty much tried every type of medication every type of therapy, and nothing's really happened.
So the shock therapy was to try and rewire your brain.
But again, it comes back to the funding of it, because with shock therapy, you have your initial 12 sessions, and you're meant to have what they call maintenance sessions every 6, 12, 18 months, whatever they decide, to make sure that what they've done keeps the levels
Keeps
where
it
they need to
balanced.
be.
Yep.
But I didn't receive that, so I had the 12, and then 2 years later,
So those 12 were ultimately for nothing.
yeah, pretty much.
The initial 12.
Yeah, so I spoke to doctors, and I spoke to my psychiatrist, and I spoke to all of them about getting more. I still speak to them about getting more. And I get, well, you don't seem so bad at the moment, so...
Okay.
But they don't know what's going on upstairs.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you find, like, I can't even comprehend getting electric shock therapy done. Like I said, when I do think about that sort of stuff, my mind goes to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where, they're shaking violently and, biting down on something and whatever. Is that what it's like? And did you find it worked?
So now you don't experience it, so they put you to sleep.
Okay.
With general anaesthetic. You put to sleep for, I think, about an hour.
Okay.
And they'll do the shocks, and you'll have the convulsions and stuff.
And you had no memory of that when you woke up?
You don't experience it, no.
Oh, wow.
I pretty much have no memory at all from that time. I remember little moments from being in the ward, but when it comes to the actual shock therapy,
It's all just nothing.
yeah.
Wow.
I remember I was bloody tired a lot. Like, I slept a good 18 hours every time I had a session.
Your brain was probably running a marathon every time they did it.
Wow.
Yeah, well, like I said, when you told me all about it, I never knew it. I thought something like that had ceased in the 60s, 70s.
It's only used for very extreme cases.
Okay.
So if you've got like severe schizophrenia or treatment-resistant depression, yeah, they'll use it for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Given the passive suicidal thoughts, which I am assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a background, like, thought of it daily? Is that how you would just describe it? Or just like a thought of it?
So I would wake up pretty much every day and say I didn't want to be there, and I'd start thinking of ways I could do it and
Okay.
how I'd tell people.
Passive and the active, right?
Yeah, so the only thing that switches it from passive to active is actually having a plan.
Oh, okay. So the active is the planning
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
So that's what they'll ask you in hospital as well, is they'll say, are you having any active thoughts of suicide?
Okay.
Because unfortunately, if you tell them that no, I don't have a plan right now, they'll go, oh well, then you'll be off over there then. And my biggest problem with that approach is when I decided to do it, it happened in about 10 minutes. So, people are treating passive suicidal ideation as, something that it's like, oh, he's alright though, he's not actually thinking about doing it. But it changes very quickly.
I can appreciate on the flip side, let me know if you think differently or what your thoughts are, but that there could be a train of thought that if the community-based supports like Be Cognitive, NDIS, community mental health is working well, let's get them out of the hospital, right?
Absolutely,
And help them over
absolutely.
But that's not necessarily.
If it were up to me, I'd never go back to hospital ever again.
Yeah.
I'd stay in the community.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't have enough of those supports.
Sure.
Because mental health or mental illness is, as I like to say, the redheaded stepchild of disabilities. Like it's
Let me just get my head around that.
I can appreciate
Mental
that.
health is the red-headed stepchild
of
of the
disabilities.
disability.
In other words,
There's
nobody,
something in that, man. That's.
As in
Where
no-
did you get that from?
nobody accepts a red-headed stepchild into their family.
To me,
Until Ed
it's,
Sheeran, man, they
Yeah.
really were the black sheep of the
until
family.
he came
right?
along and everyone realised, oh, they can do some stuff.
They're always the
Yeah, it's-
red-headed black sheep of the family.
Like you've got your got your physical disability,
Of course.
you've got your intellectual disability, you've got
Pretty obvious,
those
some of
sorts of
them,
things
you know.
where it's like everyone's like, okay, well, you know, in Damo's case, okay, well, we need to help him. You know,
Really?
someone with Down syndrome, okay, we need to help them.
Yeah.
But if you come forward asking for help and asking to be put into disability services with mental health, everyone's like, serious?
Yeah.
Come on, just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Get over it, you'll be right. Yeah, and that, I hate hearing that.
I can't tell you how many times I have had someone say to me, especially about my anxiety, is, but don't think about it. And it's like, you don't seem to understand that I've got no control over what my brain brings into my view.
You are not your thoughts.
No, like,
As
I
a
mean,
person, that's who you are.
I've had some pretty horrible things flash into my mind, you know, and I didn't sit there and go, like, it'd be really funny if this popped in, you know. People are still under the impression that we can control it, and we can't.
Unlock a seamless NDIS experience with Plan Partners. Say goodbye to paperwork hassles and hello to quick reimbursements and exclusive benefits. Our app and online dashboard make managing your NDIS funds easy, ensuring you maximise every dollar for the supports you need. Choose Plan Partners for expert advice, simplified fund management, and a focus on your goals. Click the link in the description to get started. What would be your advice for somebody who's currently thinking about suicide? As somebody who's been there, what would you say to that person? It's not an easy road, is it? Even from that point, to go to hospital, that is hard.
Is it easy for someone that's on your journey to try and help someone else on the same journey? Or is it hard to connect to?
It honestly depends on the day.
Yeah.
If my brain is chaos, I'm no help to anyone. If I've got some sort of clear thinking for the day and I'm not obsessing over the suicide thoughts and that kind of thing, then yeah, I can try and give you everything that I've learned. But yeah, it all depends on.
But if you're both feeling the exact same way, it's just not going to end well at all. Yeah.
It's very hard to help someone when your brain's in chaos.
Well, let me reword it. What did you do when you were at that moment of going, I don't want to be back in the hospital, but if I don't do something about it, I've got a plan in place?
My biggest thing is just admit you need help. Admit that. Don't try and be the tough guy. Don't try and be that tough person that just wants to keep knuckling through and put your head down and that kind of stuff. Admit you need help.
I've heard people say, I couldn't act on it at the moment. I need to call someone and get help because I couldn't do that to my mum, or I've got people who rely on me. Is that something for you as well, that you felt at times like, oh man, like I better call an ambulance because has it been something else?
I mean, if I'm honest, when I get into those really dark places where it switches to active, I don't think about anyone else.
Okay.
I think about that I need this shit to stop.
Yep. And that's a fair response.
And that becomes, and because your brain then switches into fight or flight mode, your brain is solely thinking about that.
And that's why for outsiders it looks like a very selfish act.
Yeah, I've been called selfish.
You know, we would look at it and go, how could you do that to your mum? She lives for you. But at your point in time, your brain doesn't allow you to think on that level.
Yeah, people don't seem to understand that. Like, I think that's the hardest part they have grasping with that kind
Absolutely.
of thing. That we're not thinking about anyone else, and it's like, yeah, I know.
But it's not because you're not.
All I want is for it to stop, and then your brain starts convincing you that you're doing the right thing as well.
Because you don't want to be a burden on them anymore.
Your brain's going, well, you know what? Mum's not going to have to deal with me being in any of these psychiatric wards again. Mum's not going to have to deal with all the constant
You can swear, we do all the time.
Or the constant trips to the hospital, you know, she's not going to have to deal with that anymore. I'm doing her a favour.
But right now, you damn well know that that's not how she looks at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're in that active mode,
But when that switches to active, you know, like your brain will tell you some horrible things.
You know your mother would take a bullet for you
Absolutely.
10 times over if it meant keeping you out of hospital.
Yep.
You know, but I understand that when you are in active mode, and it's not because you can't think about your mum, it's your brain doesn't actually allow you.
Yeah. Your brain blocks out
All the positive
all
stuff.
of that stuff.
Yep.
Like I said, because it switches to fight and flight, you're literally only thinking about survival or finishing it.
Yep.
And it's which one wins out in that moment. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't.
Well,
Survival doesn't win.
I'm glad you're still here. And
Good.
I'm glad that you actioned getting rid of the pain by taking a tough road of still going to hospital. You know, because that's a witness. I'm not here to put you on a pedestal or myself or anything, but that's a witness to, you know, none of us have arrived, but that you've stepped into, I guess, a journey, right? Of, and got the help and you're in the NDIS.
That's why I do tell people, just admit that you can't do it yourself. It's okay. It's no one from my circle is going to judge you.
It really is the first step, isn't
You
it?
have admitted that you need some help.
Bloody oath, man. I rate that.
That's the most toxic thing in our society, I think, is that people look down on people who admit they need help.
I find it so refreshing to hear a fellow friend share a struggle, and I just go, far out, man. Like, dude, I feel you, brother.
Absolutely.
Or sister, or whatever. You know, it's like, I hear you. It's, I think it's good for the soul, you know? Tell us about, can I jump in? Can I keep flowing?
Yeah. I want to try and start getting to a little bit of positivity.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I don't want to end our chat on the negatives.
Flow, bro, you go.
You know, I was just going to say, you know, you've had a pretty hard road. You've had, you know, like you said, I was at your wedding. It was amazing. It lasted 4.5 years. 7? Wow. Well, actually, I did miss a year and a half. So to be fair, 7. You know, we all know how that turned out. We're not going to go on that. But what was it, about 10 months ago? Or am I way off again?
No, about that.
About 10 months ago, you met your current partner, and I've only met her a handful of times, but I think she's the best fucking thing that ever happened to you.
She's pretty awesome.
You know, you're living with her already. Her kids, you're their dad. Like, even though they've got a dad, you are their dad. You know, and at Christmas time, no, your birthday, I think it was, they bought him a t-shirt.
Okay.
And it said, this isn't a dad bod, it's a father figure. And
Nice.
it wasn't even bought for me, and I cried when he sent me the picture.
Like, as in, somebody else has a sense of humour that's just as bad as you? Is that what you're saying?
No, the fact that,
That's what comes to mind for me.
way to ruin the moment, man.
No, keep flowing.
No, the fact that he'd only been in these kids' lives for 6 months.
Yeah,
And, you know, everyone goes on about dad bod figures these days.
for sure.
But they didn't look at him as a dad bod. He was their actual father figure. And I showed my wife and she nearly cried. You know, and you told me you nearly cried, or you did cry. You know, and it's those little things that make still being here absolutely worth it.
So good.
It's
So good, man. Tell us about that.
those boys especially have done wonders for me. Because I have never thought that I would ever be a role model for anyone. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I actually love being around them.
How old are they?
10, 12, 13 and 18.
And now you get to feel my pain of waking up to screaming kids every morning.
Oh, it's not so much that, it's feeding them. I don't stop eating.
Or feeding, that too.
How many chicken nuggets can one 15-year-old eat, right?
It's crazy.
More than him.
Like, I swear, we'll have dinner We'll be sitting there watching something on TV. 20 minutes later, I'm hungry. What?
Yep.
You just ate like your body weight in pasta. What are you doing?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Teenage boys, eh?
Oh. Like,
awesome.
all of a sudden I felt like all the pain that my brother went through and Damo went through and my mate Cookie went through, and I was like, I don't understand how you guys have any money.
As I said earlier, 2 days ago we spent $380, and that's 1 week of shopping.
Yeah,
You know,
it's legit.
for 3 kids that are only 16, 14 and 10.
Wow, yeah.
Let alone 18, 16, 15 and 12 or whatever it was. But, you know, right now it's pretty good for you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's more positive than it's been, fair bit.
For a long time, yeah.
Because I went through a pretty dark place again after the marriage.
As you would expect, with the way it happened,
And because I had a lot of housing instability as well in that time. So, yeah, that was a bit of a rough couple of years, but I feel like things are starting to get a bit better.
I know it can be a little bit of a push for people to get onto the NDIS with mental health diagnosis. What would be your encouragement for people who are like on the fence about it all and I don't know if I could be stuffed?
Just don't stop trying.
Just do it.
Every time they knock you back, come back with 100 more documents saying that you are going through some stuff and these are your diagnoses and this is what the treatments you've had. And,
if you do need the help, if it is ongoing and you meet the criteria, just do it, right?
And like, unfortunately, it is a bit expensive.
What do you mean, like
because you do have to go see different psychiatrists
to get on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yep.
if you don't have the reports already, then you've got to pay for them yourself.
If you're trying to build up your reports as well, you'll have to go see, obviously, a
private
private
psychiatrist.
psychiatrist because you're not going to get anywhere with a public one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Stick in the process, you reckon?
Yeah, but just keep going. It'll, same with disability payment on Centrelink.
Yeah.
I tried for 11 years for that, and it was the same thing. Just keep going. Just keep, every time they tell you that it's not enough, just keep piling it up.
Yeah.
See whoever you possibly can.
Yeah.
Enroll in as much as you possibly can. In regards to therapies.
Yeah.
Because one of two things is going to happen. You're going to get something really positive from that therapy anyway, or there's another therapy that hasn't worked,
and
which
will
will help you show to them that obviously these things aren't working. I need more help. It's going to be hard. It is. But
And you can see why a lot of people just give up.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There were points when I sort of just threw everything in the air and went, fuck it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I nagged him for 6 months to come around to my house with the NDIS application paperwork.
And sometimes that's what good mates do, right?
And, it never happened because at the time it was too much for him to even look at and try and confront and attack.
And
I feel overwhelming, I imagine.
They are massively overwhelming.
Because not only is it like a lot of hoops that you have to jump through, but it's so many different people that you have to justify your issues to as well. That's the worst part, is like having to recount your story over and over and over again and tell people exactly why you can't do things and why this is an issue and why that's an issue, and it's
Tibby is reshaping disability supports by using the human rights model. We believe in delivering support with you, not just for you. Join Tibby, where everyone's unique humanity is valued and supported. Contact Tibby for all your disability support services and click the link to find out how we can make a difference together. I don't think hearing it from you makes it any easier, but at least you know those who've gone ahead like yourself, it's like this is what to expect.
And there are, I would encourage anyone trying to do NDIS or disability to get a disability advocate, because they will tell you exactly what you need for Centrelink in the NDIS.
Which is a government service that you can just Google about.
Yeah, so there's private ones and public ones that they can put you in touch with. It's one of those things that you're probably better off seeing a private one.
Yep.
Because they have a lot lighter
More
caseload.
time.
But yeah, they'll help you and they'll say like, look, you need the 20 points for the disability, and you need this, and you need this, and we need a letter from this person, we need a letter from this person. This is the kind of stuff we need them to say. You know, they'll help you, because the wording of a letter from a doctor can change things. You know, so they'll sort of instruct you like, this is what we need it to say. Like, we need it to say that it is an issue for you and that you need help doing this and you need help doing that. Yeah.
And if they can't afford their own specialist, they just need their own special Damo friend
Yeah.
to help point them in the right direction.
That's it, right.
And advocate and put all the right, keywords in his head.
For sure.
You know.
Sure. Awesome.
I mean,
how long have we been going for?
it's 5 to 3.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had a pretty good chat. We haven't even touched on the homelessness stuff.
No.
Maybe, but are you alright?
Yeah.
We'll probably wrap it up in a sec. Any further questions? Or
Probably lots, mate. But is there anything in particular you want to touch on?
no, I'm good. I'm just enjoying having a chat.
Yeah.
I've learned more about you today than what I already knew as well. So it's been cool.
Probably riff for another 10 or so.
Yeah, we can do another 10.
Yeah, nice.
We'll wrap it up in a, go for it.
Sick. Being on the NDIS and having a recovery coach, do you see yourself as somebody who's in recovery? It's an interesting. It's a bit like it feels like a little like a.
Yeah.
It's
funny
an
word, isn't it?
interesting terminology.
It is, isn't it?
I feel.
I think there's good intention behind it.
But is it the right wording?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like with a lot of.
Like you're just heading into an AA meeting or something.
Yeah, but like even with mental health, I feel like a lot of them don't really have a recovery.
Does it really need the word recovery in it?
Yeah.
Why not just psychosocial coach?
Yeah, it's more of a.
Sure. Yeah.
It's more of a just. Things going smoothly.
Yeah.
Because most
Things are going smoothly.
smoothly,
at the moment,
coach.
so-
Imagine googling that. I'm looking for a things going smoothly coach.
most
Again.
people are never ever gonna get over it,
Exactly.
right?
It's about
Even ex-alcoholics, ex-druggies, they're gonna even if they've been clean for 10 years, the next day they're gonna be like, oh wow, it's been 10 years. One drink won't hurt. Bam. Like, and mental health is exactly the same. You could have a great 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden your head just.
All it takes is one bump in the road to spiral, unfortunately.
Yes. So therefore, recovery shouldn't be in the wording.
Like I
Let's
said,
change it.
things are going smoothly.
If I could bang my hand on the table right now, I would. Bang it. Let's change
I
it.
don't want to mug the mics up, but.
It's over there. Psychosocial coach.
So you're a psychosocial coach, and you've got currently a sport worker as well, a team.
Yeah, so I've got support workers that come out Tuesdays and Fridays.
Has that made a big difference for you?
Um,
Or is it still early days?
That I'm struggling with a bit more, just solely because of the social anxiety aspect of my issues. I'm not good with new people.
Oh mate, who is?
And I'm not good with small talk or anything like that. If you get me on a topic that I like, I can talk for hours.
Yeah, I get that.
If it comes to like, oh, how's your kids? No.
Yeah, I don't know. They ate all the food. That's all I was about to say.
But
They all like nuggets and they're still alive.
yeah.
I am slowly getting there. I've got most of them helping me just with daily walks and
Oh,
that kind of stuff to get
That's good.
moving again because the last suicide attempt left a lot of physical issues. So yeah, I'm sort of slowly trying to start fixing those things.
Awesome, man. Little by little.
Yeah.
Love it. Appreciate your time, man. Appreciate hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly. I really appreciate you as a person, man, and just meeting you. But hearing the very real challenges of navigating the system and where it's currently at. But the fact that you persevered and that you know, like us all, mate, you ain't perfect, but you're in the journey,
Yeah.
and you're getting services in place, bro, and doing your thing. Appreciate your time and getting to learn a bit about it.
It's been awesome.
You got more thoughts, mate, or we wrapped up?
I was just going to ask you what your favourite tattoo was on you.
Yeah. Power Rangers is pretty good, man, but I want to hear.
Hang on, lift up the beard. Turn to the camera. That's yellow Power Ranger, red on one side, and
For nerd reasons, it'd
that.
be the Jack Nicholson Joker I got on my leg.
can you get your leg on the table?
No.
That's okay, neither can I.
I can barely lift my leg up.
It's a very iconic. Oh, the Joker's iconic.
Yeah.
By nature, but the Jack Nicholson, something about Jack Nicholson.
Nicholson was, he was the first Psycho on movie that they did.
So like really before him, they hadn't really put on
They had-
mainstream.
They had Cesar Romero back in the '66 Batman, but they made that Batman very campy. So like it was all
I remember like the funny face paint.
yeah,
almost like a comic.
and one of the battles they had was a surf battle. They didn't actually
I
fight.
see, I've
They-
seen that.
They had a surf battle. You know, so that was very comic-y and very kiddie and that kind of thing. But when Nicholson came along and did it with Tim Burton, yeah, it was
The first.
all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, he's crazy.
Finally, the comic books
Yeah.
are coming.
Which
Into
I think was good anyway because that was very similar to the comics.
Yeah.
The first sort of thing we got from Joker, he was just comic relief for a good 10 years.
Hence the word Joker, like
yeah.
they made him out to be a Joker.
And then it wasn't until the 70s that they sort of unleashed him as a psycho and he started just offing people and
It started with Jack
messing with
Nicholson
people
and then
yeah.
Heath Ledger nailed it and it hasn't been the same since.
I'm a huge Marvel DC fan.
Yeah.
I love it, man. It's
That's how we first connected, eh?
It was definitely a big part of like, oh hey, you're sport coordination at the time. You're like, oh hey Eddie, can you help us with these servers for this service agreement? And then
Oh, by the way, have you seen such and such
where are
yet?
you up to with the latest Avengers?
Yeah.
And then we just have like a 10-minute review session.
And then we were like, oh, hang on, shit, what we were talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs our help now.
It was
Yeah,
good.
It was a good blend, man.
Pretty much everything I've got on my arms, my legs, most of my head, my neck is all DC or Marvel or Power Rangers.
Fun. Well, we won't talk about all the other mistakes they've made. They've made a lot of DC's made a few rough mistakes
I'm actually
with their movies.
I'm excited because there was a what do you call it? A cutscene from the Robert Pattinson Batman.
The most recent one.
Yeah. And
They-
Cutscene at the end. I've
yeah,
seen
they
that.
actually introduced a new Joker there who
Excited.
looks pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Movie night.
I
I'm
still,
down,
haven't,
man.
I still haven't watched that one. DC just screwed around with my emotions too much where I'm like, I can't even bother because the next movie is going to be completely different.
DC is a shit show. Like the movie, I love the movies. Like I don't really have a bad.
But
thing to say about
continuity
anything.
doesn't
But yeah,
exist.
they don't believe in making logical sense of anything.
No.
Like you should see the new list of what's canon and what isn't canon now that James Gunn's taken over. And
So I'm curious, obviously tattoos are very addictive to get. You know, I have a few myself. Why? What's your reason behind being covered in tattoos? And then I'll see if it's the same as mine.
I have a lot of body image issues, like a lot of them.
Boom.
So I decided one day that I don't like the way I look, so I'll put stuff on me that I like looking at.
I'm actually exactly the same. I have always been looked at anyway, just because of how
Yeah.
my different look. So I figured when I was 18, if people want to look at me, I may as well give them something to look at.
I say that as well. Like I said to, I think it was Cassie a couple months ago, I'm like, now they're looking at the tattoo.
Yes.
They're not looking at me
Yes.
being a giant
Or they're looking at their hair, yes.
whatever. They're looking at what
Yep.
I let them look at.
Yep, and I'm the same. Like, you know, if I, not too often, but if I get around shirtless, it gives people something else to look at because of all my tattoos. And
That's
nowadays,
pretty common.
hey,
But you think that's a pretty common thing why people get tats?
with people
Some
that
people?
people that suffer from like body dysmorphia and they're not happy with their general self, but like I physically can't change how I look
Sure.
because that's just what I was given. But tattoos can mask that.
I find tattoos can be very empowering for a lot of people.
I love it. I would, yeah.
You know, the skinny kid who doesn't think he looks right because he doesn't look like a bodybuilder, so he's covering himself in tattoos. You know, the big guy that wishes he could lose, 70, 80 kilos, but
Yeah.
but it's I think it's sort of a coping mechanism as well for me.
It is.
So like I'm like, well, like I said, if I do have to look at it, I'm gonna look at something I don't like.
Yeah.
Instead of
Fair
something
enough.
I don't like.
And
Yeah, interesting. Never thought of that.
all my tattoos, like every single one of them, mean something. They're not just a tattoo for the sake of a tattoo. Like my left arm was done in Vegas, my right arm was done in Sydney. I've got 2 memorial tattoos on my belly, my life motto on my chest, a crucifix and my brother's birth and death date on my neck. So every tattoo I have means something. They're never going to diminish over time.
Bloody story, eh?
Yeah.
Cool. Should we wrap it up and then just keep talking about DC and Marvel?
Nah, we better go. But Benjie, seriously,
Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you coming in. I know it's not always easy to talk about, and I know we've spoken about a lot of it before.
Thanks, man.
And after today, I will promise you I'll never ask you again.
Thanks, all good.
Appreciate the awareness.
I enjoy talking about it because I'd rather people know that there are other people out there that can agree with it as well.
Well, and not enough people actually talk about it.
Yeah.
So if having you on here,
Especially
Bloody oath.
the worst sides of things. It's not really touched on.
and if having you on here inspires someone else to contact us to have a chat, or even just Lifeline or whatever, then
100%.
go at it. Absolutely. Make the most of the services that are out there.
Yeah.
Even if they don't always work, they're still there.
Still there. They do something.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Peace out.
Later, man.